I've been getting a lot of questions about my thoughts on 5G stocks going forward here. I think there's a lot to be excited about, especially with new phones and all kinds of new connected devices coming up on the horizon, especially with the new iPhone about to ramp. So one of the stocks I've owned for a long time and very excited about is Skyworks Solutions. So join me in today's analysis and I'll share with you why you need this stock in your portfolio. We've seen Skyworks Solutions stock price basically double since the market crash in March. Take a look at the price chart here. Really big decline from like a $70-ish low all the way up to where it is now at like 140. In today's video, I wanted to share some of my own thoughts, some of my own research, what I've learned about Skyworks, who they are, what they do, and a look at some of their sales figures and their future growth prospects as well. So we all know 4G and 5G. You've probably heard 5G is going to melt your brains or turn you into an alien or something like that. I don't think we need to talk about that in this video. So most of our devices, especially smartphones nowadays, have 4G settings on them, so they run really quickly. You might be watching this video streaming off of YouTube at like 720p or 1080p while you're sitting in a subway riding the train to work. We're kind of used to the speeds that 4G can offer, but if you tried to, for example, stream 4G or stream high-res like FaceTime with a friend or Zoom meetings with many friends, you would start to see the limitations of 4G internet speed, bandwidth speed. And what ends up happening is you lose quality, things get slowed down or things get choppy, and basically there's so many things in our lives. Like right now we have watches, there's even like internet connected coffee makers and fridges and microwaves, and more cars are connected to the internet. Imagine you had a pipe like this big. You can only fit so much stuff through it. Now more and more we're like 4K everything, coffee maker, and it doesn't fit through that pipe anymore. And so basically 5G comes through and makes that pipe 100 times bigger, potentially 100 times bigger. There's a lot associated with actually achieving those kinds of speeds. There's the network side, there's the actual device side, your cell phone, your computer, your modems, routers, the cables that bring the internet to your modem in your house, all these different things. And so Skyworks Solutions comes in. They are the ones who build all of those components in your iPhone, in your Samsung phone, or in your modem, your router, all these different infrastructural things in your computer. Skyworks Solution is really a big player, and they have all kinds of different little technology pieces and components in all of these different devices. In fact, 51% of their revenues come from Apple alone. So Apple is their biggest customer. And if you have any Apple stuff that connects to the internet, you probably have Skyworks Solutions parts in them. So in Skyworks' Sky5 kind of introduction webpage, they have this neat little video that kind of explains what they're doing, why they're special, and why they're really growing well over the years. One of the difficult things we're seeing as devices are getting thinner, devices are getting more specialized, devices like, if a new Android phone is coming out, to stand out, it has to offer better speeds or better audio or things like that. What were typically more generic parts that could fit in kind of any computer or any kind of modem or router or things like that, more and more, because of the demands of speed, but also more custom shaped devices or things like that, Skyworks Solutions offers really customizable and flexible architecture for their components. So they can say, Apple comes to them and says, hey, we want to make our iPhone this thin and it has to be this fast. They can say, okay, we can use our Sky5 architecture and put together a little package that handles, your Bluetooth and all the filtering and all of the amplifying of all the signal stuff and all of these little signal-y things that need to happen in an iPhone. And we're going to make it in a custom-sized package that will fit in all of your iPhone models for this year's release, or that type of transaction. So Skyworks Solution is making these solutions of chips mostly to deal with radio frequency stuff. So they have this explanation on their video showing all the different little things that they do and the solutions that they bring to increasingly complex and increasingly competitive problems that we have in our lives every day when it comes to our gadgets and the little devices that we need to be using. As you know, I've been doing a bunch of different stock analyses on companies that are particularly capitalizing on our entire world's shift to working at home or not being in an office, traditional office environment. We have things like Dropbox or Box, where it's like they're providing a way for people to be able to share files around the internet. You know, we have things like Slack now, team collaboration, being able to communicate and replace email and things like that. These are all companies that probably will be doing really well in the coming years the more people withdraw from the stereotypical working environment. You know, my whole team all have their own laptops, we all have our own cell phones, and at our homes we also have all these internet infrastructure-y type things. Maybe it's a pocket Wi-Fi that powers their house, or maybe it's an actual cable that powers a modem and a router that powers Wi-Fi through the whole house. Skyworks Solutions is like involved with all of those little things. I've been talking a lot about the software as a service business model and how that's going to capitalize. This is more of a look at how hardware will be changing, and the demands on hardware and also the need for different types of hardware will be changing going into the coming years as well. Skyworks Solutions is one of the really big players, and I'll get into this a little bit later when I talk about the Moat, but their production capacity is so large because, you know, Apple is one of their biggest clients. They need to be able to produce a lot of different components or very customized components just for a certain device really, really quickly, that they don't have a lot of other competition on that scale. Generally speaking, there are other competitors in this space like Qorvo, Qualcomm, Broadcom, or companies like that. I haven't looked in super deeply to those stocks, but I do know that because of this really, really high production capability, almost like in a league of its own when it comes to being able to produce so much so quickly. Some of the other partnerships they're involved with include audio solutions with various brands like Sonos or other partners in gaming headsets. We also see a partnership with BMW has materialized, as have other partnerships in things like aerospace. You know, so they're getting into autonomous driving, aerospace, which could be, you know, a really actual big thing coming up into the future for everyday Joe, as well as audio and all these different kinds of things. So it's not just, you know, nerdy computer people stuff. It's like they're starting to have partners in all different types of industries. Skyworks Solutions market cap as we speak is about 23 billion. With an annual revenue stream of about 3.2 billion. Interestingly, compared to a lot of the other stocks we've been looking at recently, their PE ratio is only about 30, even after this huge price run-up, which is fascinating to me. They've also announced recently a 14% buffing of their dividend. They boosted up that dividend, and now it's a little bit more interesting. If you're like a big dividend person, you know, it's not like 4, 5, 6, 7% or something like that. I think it's like 1.4% or something like that. But that still goes to show that they're committed to growing their dividend, even while things aren't going super duper awesome in the world economy. 24% of Skyworks revenues are coming from China. And interestingly, in June, 60% plus of all mobile devices that were shipped in China are 5G ready, meaning that they have the infrastructure, the components to be able to handle those 100x 4G speeds, you know, that will be available on 5G. And they also have really big partnerships with big players like Samsung, Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, Motorola, and like loads of other companies who are depending on them for the components to put in their devices. Obviously, one of the downsides in these kind of pandemic times, when sales of smartphones are going down a little bit, sales of luxury goods or, you know, sales of electronic components and things like that are obviously down around the world. And as a result, that also ends up hitting Skyworks Solutions' bottom line as well. Fortunately, their losses haven't been too big for this quarter, and we're still seeing that their bottom line is growing, surprisingly. At the end of last quarter, which ended in June, their revenues were down about 4% to $737 million. But on the flip side, their radio frequency chip sales were up about 5% year over year. So all that to say, in total, things went down a bit, but there are certain segments that are still growing, so don't give up on us, guys, kind of thing. But that being said, the adjusted gross margin only fell 0.1%, down to 50.1% in the most recent quarter. So those are really good margins, even though things like don't really look good as far as, you know, sales in the short term. When questioned about it, Skyworks' management also said we expect revenues to jump back up about 100 million in the coming quarter too. So whether or not they'll be able to achieve that extra 100 million in revenues in this coming quarter, especially with the economic conditions the way they are, it looks really hopeful that things will be able to generally pick up in the coming quarters and years. And there aren't really a lot of direct threats to Skyworks Solutions as far as being able to provide the high-tech things for really good prices and really high production rates that Skyworks Solutions does offer. Even though they're pulling in net margins of 24.4%, which is beautiful, super beautiful, they have zero debt. There's zero debt to worry about, to think about, to fear. You don't have that kind of nagging thing going down your back where it's like, dude, when are they going to be able to pay this off? Are they going to be able to pay the same dividend next quarter, or things like that? This company is really, really sharply managed. Additionally, Skyworks isn't only working in the radio frequency space for mobile phones, but they also hold a similarly commanding position in providing components for other industries like medical, networking, and wireless infrastructure. Unlike cell phone companies who are typically trying to rush and hurry up and get the next model out on the shelves next year or every year with really short product cycles, one of the cool things about, medical supplies or wireless infrastructure or things like that is that their cycle lifetimes aren't really as short. And so once you develop a product, you can just sell it for 2 or 3 or 4 years. And then you basically end up with a higher net margin on those types of products, which is cool. So it goes to show you that they're not, laser focused on just cell phones or something like that. Their work is kind of expanding into all these different types of fields, and increasingly as things like coffee makers have these types of RF chips in them, they'll be kind of branching out into even more and even more Internet of Things, IoT products as well. So when it comes down to their moat, some analysts are kind of like, kind of a bit of a moat. I feel like a little bit more confident in Skyworks' moat. Because of their production capabilities and their really dominant kind of standpoint, especially when it comes to having long-lasting partnerships with high-quality companies, like we see with Samsung and Apple and things like that. Apple wouldn't put all of this demand on Skyworks if their solutions sucked or if they couldn't meet the deadlines. Apple is like really, really cutthroat. On the flip side, that's kind of a red flag that we need to look out for. If something happens and there's beef between the company and Apple says, okay, for the next generation of iPhones, we're not going to work with you guys. Yeah, that would be difficult for Skyworks Solutions to handle. But when you look into it, it sounds like the relationship is actually strengthening, which is a really good thing. When you're partnered with like the biggest corporation ever in the history of the world, probably a good thing. So factoring all of that in with the fact that their Sky5 architecture seems to be pushing a lot of boundaries, seems to be kind of on the bleeding edge of technology and speeding things up. And take that with a grain of salt because I haven't really looked in like a deep dive into any of their competitors yet. All that to say, I hear really good things about Qualcomm as well, but Skyworks Solutions seems to be in a really, really good position with low PE ratios. Yeah, they've jumped up a bunch in the last few months, which I've enjoyed. But I think looking into the future, kind of like I was mentioning earlier with a lot of these other stocks, the more people start to work at home, the more schools start to operate mobile, the more ordering meals becomes a thing that you do through the internet. And all of our devices are requiring some kind of participation in internet connection. As that growth happens, Skyworks Solution is positioned right there to be one of, if not the most dominant player to be providing all of those components. So that being said, yes, I do own the stock. I've owned it for a long time. I will be continuing to add little by little, over the months and over the quarters and over the years. I think this company is positioned to be doing really well going into, 4, 5, 10 years into the future. And it won't be one of those ones where you kind of like, oh my gosh, I need to check in. Is it going to be okay? Did that company's new thing come out and really disrupt them or anything like that? You're kind of, I think, pretty safe with Skyworks. They also do offer a little bit of a dividend, but it's not one of those things that you'd buy just to get that dividend because it's so small. I personally feel like I can rest assured owning Skyworks Solution and not checking the stock price every day and continually buying into it over the years. So I wanted to hear what your thoughts are. Are you excited about this 5G revolution? Are you excited about Skyworks Solutions' position in the 5G revolution? Do you own Skyworks Solution? Are you going to be buying some now that you've seen this video? What do you think? Looking forward to hearing your thoughts down below in the comment section or over on our subreddit as well. Also wanted to thank you guys very much for taking the time to watch this video. I know there are lots of YouTubers and lots of stuff on YouTube for you to watch, but you've chosen this one and you've watched it all the way to the end. I thank you very much for that and for your time. Looking forward to the next video and to talking to you guys in the comment section down below. Love you and have a great day.